Hey, gang, Mr. Cruze here with a geometry video for you. This time today, we're going to talk about medians in triangles. Again, I do apologize that I'm not here today, but I do expect you to watch this video all the way till the end. Feel free to pause it, rewatch it, whatever you need to do to make sure you understand what's going on in this video. It'll be available to you. If your classmates are having trouble finding this video and you have found it, please help them out, okay? Share your screen or something with them so that they can watch this video as well. Please fill out the notes while you're watching this video, and then at the end you should be able to work on the worksheet. Make sure you check your answers in the green binders. All right, let's dive right in. So first thing we need to talk about is what in the world is a median. You might know from the real world, like in the middle of the road, you have the median, right? You might think statistics, you have the median of a data set, okay? In geometry, the median of a triangle is the segment from a vertex, so one of the corners, to the midpoint of the opposite side. Okay, it's the segment from a vertex to the midpoint of the opposite side as shown below. So you will notice there is a segment here, segment BD. It goes from vertex B to the midpoint of the opposite side. So B is a vertex, D is the midpoint of the opposite side, and the reason I know it's the midpoint is because I see that these two segments are marked as congruent, and so I know D is in the exact middle of segment AC. So BD is a median of triangle ABC. You actually have three different medians within a triangle because you can always draw one from each vertex. And since there's three vertices in a triangle, you can draw three of them. So example one here is just, hey, draw in all three medians in the following triangle. Be sure to mark them correctly. Now, obviously I'm not having you drag out protractors and straight edges and compasses and things like that. I just want you to draw in all three medians, okay? So kind of do what we did last time. So pick a vertex. I'm going to start with H. And then find the midpoint of segment IJ. Okay, so again, it's about right there. How do I know it's the midpoint? Well, I'm going to mark those two pieces next to it congruent. That way I know it's the midpoint, okay? And then we're going to connect them. That is a median. You can probably draw a little straighter segment than I did. That is a median, okay? Let's draw now one from I. And you could actually label these points. We could call that A if you wanted, and we could call this one B. But anyway, this is the midpoint over here. I intersect them like that. And then I'm going to draw one from J all the way to the midpoint C over here. And you notice when I draw it, they all intersected at some point there in the middle. Okay? This is what is known as the concurrency of medians theorem. Basically, it's fancy talk for the medians all meet at one point. Okay, so it turns out the medians of a triangle are concurrent, so they all meet at a point that is 1/3, and this is going to be the hard part of this lesson. I'm kind of sad I'm not here for this. It is 1/3 the distance from each vertex to the midpoint of the opposite side. This point, by the way, is known as the centroid. Okay. You might have heard centroid in physics class. Centroid is actually the balance point. So if you were to actually find the centroid of a triangle and put it on your finger at that point, it would balance perfectly. But anyway, this 1/3 business, this is the hard part. Okay. Basically, what ends up happening is if you find the centroid, which I think we can all agree this point right here is the centroid. Okay. It turns out, however long this median is, this distance right here from the centroid itself to the midpoint is 1/3. I'm going to write this in green here. 1/3 the entire segment. Okay? So like if the entire segment was 3, this would be 1. If the entire segment were 6, this would be 2, and so on. So it's 1/3 the distance of the length, basically, of the entire median. Here are some helpful hints to help you remember this, just because there's a lot of fractions and people do some weird stuff with that. So basically, you're going to be given one of these three different types. Okay, so there's three different types here. Maybe I should put bullet points. If you're given the whole median, so if you're given the whole length, simply divide by 3 to get the 1/3 part, right, because you're taking 1/3 of it, and then double that, which basically means times 2, right, to get the 2/3 part. That makes sense, because if I have the 1/3 part, I double it to get the 2/3 part. If you're given the 1/3 part, you're simply going to double it. So times 2 to get the 2/3 part, same as before. And then all you have to do is add them together to get the whole median. Okay? Some of you might notice you could just take the 1/3 part and multiply it by 3 to get the whole median. That works too, but I found people like to add better than they do multiplying. So if you're given the 2/3 part, I think this is the hard one for me personally. I think this is the hard one. If you're given the 2/3 part, you're going to divide by 2 to get the 1/3 part, right? Cut 2/3 in half to get the 1/3, and then you're going to add them to get the whole median again. Or you could multiply the 1/3 part by 3. It is your choice. Let me show you an example here, okay? So first thing I want to do is just make sure you understand the 1/3, 2/3 whole thing business. Obviously, I think the whole thing is easy. If you have the whole thing, that's the whole thing, okay? Literally, segment BD, that would be the entire median. Or even segment, I didn't label this point. Let's say it's segment AG. That would be a median, okay? That's the whole thing. This part from the median to the side, and again, it doesn't matter how this triangle is rotated. You could turn this picture. This is the 1/3 part, and then logic would tell you this is the 2/3 part, okay? So to kind of give you an example, I'm going to write this even in a different color for you so you can figure it out. Let's imagine I have the whole thing, and I tell you, hey, the whole thing is 15. Well, okay, so I've got the whole thing, right? So I'm going to divide by 3 to get the 1/3 part. So 15 divided by 3, that's this guy, that would be 5, okay? 15 divided by 3 is 5. Then, to get the 2/3 part, I simply double this. So 5 times 2 is 10. Does that make sense? You take 15 divided by 3 to get the 1/3, you double it to get the 2/3, and then you add them to get the whole thing. So what if I'd started with the 1/3 part? Well, I would take 5, and I would double it to get 10, right? Double it to get the 2/3 part, and then I would just simply add those together to get the whole thing. 10 plus 5 is 15, okay? What if I started with the 2/3 part? Well, you'll notice I would divide it by 2 to get the 5, and then I would simply add those 2 to get the 15. Okay, so it kind of depends on which number you're starting with. So you need to figure out, am I starting with the whole thing, the 1/3, or the 2/3 part? All right, let's try some examples. And again, feel free to rewatch this video if you need to, or go back and rewind me to make sure that you got it, okay? In triangle ABC, X is the centroid. So we're going to say X is the centroid, which means these are congruent, right? Because each of these, helps if I mark it correctly. Each of these points, W, Z, and Y, are midpoints of their respective sides. That's what this is. If that's the centroid, these are medians, okay? All right, so we need to figure these things out. I'm going to highlight things as we go. So if CW is 15, so I look and I see, okay, CW is 15. Okay, so I pretty much already did this one for you. So CW is 15. Is that the whole thing, the 1/3, or the 2/3? You should be able to tell me. That's the whole thing. This is the whole thing. So what does the rule say to do? It says divide by 3. If I go back up here if given the whole median, I divide by 3 to get the 1/3 part. 15 divided by 3 is 5. And then I just look and I see, okay, which one is the 1/3 part? Which one is shorter? Is it WX or is it XC? Well, it should be obvious, but it's always to the side that's the shorter one. So WX is 5. Or they wrote it XW. I'll write it XW just to make sure we got it. And then, according to the rule, I double it to get the other piece. So CX is going to be 5 times 2, or 10. And notice, what do those two add up to? They add up to 15, the whole thing. Okay. Let's go on to the next one. So if BX is 8. All right, so BX is right here. That is from a vertex to the centroid. So you tell me, is that the whole thing, the 1/3, or the 2/3? That is very clearly the 2/3. It's not the whole thing because it doesn't go all the way, and it's not the shorter piece, so this is the 2/3. So this is the 2/3 business, okay? Well, the rule says I divide that by 2, so I'm going to take 8 divided by 2. That's 4. That'll get me the 1/3 part, which is XY. So XY is 4. And then to get the whole thing, which is BY, I take 4 plus the 8, and I get 12. Or notice you could take the 1/3 part and multiply it by 3. 4 times 3 is 12 as well. All right, how about if XZ is 3? So XZ is 3. That's this guy. Is that the whole thing, the 1/3, or the 2/3 part? That's very clearly the 1/3 part, right? Because it's from the centroid to the side. And you're going to multiply it by multiply by 2 to get the whole, get the 2/3 part, right? So AX is the 2/3 part. That's 6. And to get the whole thing, you could simply add 3 plus 6, which is 9. Or you could take the 1/3 part times 3. 3 times 3 is 9 as well. It's sort of your choice, okay? All right, let's keep going. So number 3, in triangle ABD, C is the centroid. Again, so we've got like... All right. So if AC is 14, I kind of want you to pause the video here, and I want you to try and find CF by yourself, okay? Kind of pause the video, try it, see if you can figure it out okay. All right, so hopefully you figured out AC is the 2/3 part, so I'm going to divide by 2 to get the 1/3 part, which is CF, by the way, which is the part that they are asking for. So CF has to be 7. All right, so let's see if we can do the same thing on the next one. So EC is 6. So EC is here. That's 6. You tell me, is that the whole thing, the 1/3, or the 2/3 part? Hopefully you said that's the 1/3 part. ED, what I'm trying to find here, is actually the whole thing. So I could do a couple things. I could double the 6 to get 12, and then so I know this is 6 and this is 12, and then the whole thing has to be 18. Or I could simply multiply 6 by 3. It's your choice. All right, last one, and again, I kind of want you to try this one on your own, all right? And then I will write the answers, and we'll see if we get the same thing, okay? So in triangle SZU, you'll notice all of these are marked as midpoints. So that means this guy is the centroid. Those are all medians, because they all come from a vertex and go to the midpoint of the opposite side. So J is the centroid, okay? You'll notice they tell you JV is 3, okay? They tell you UJ is 9. And they tell you ZT, this is the only one that's not marked. ZT, this whole thing, is 18. That's the only one that's not marked because there's not really a convenient way to mark it, okay? I want you to try and find the following measures, all right? Again, pause the video, and then I'll quickly walk you through it. All right, so YJ. I notice YJ is on this segment here, right? Which I notice they've already given me the 9 from J to U. Notice that's not the whole thing. That's not the 1/3 part, because actually the part I'm trying to find is the 1/3 part. This is the 2/3 part. So I'm going to take 9, and this is going to get complicated for you. I'm going to take 9 and I'm going to divide it by 2, which gives me 4.5. Yes, you can get decimals on these. They may not always be so nice, okay? All right, how about YU? Okay, so again, I look and I go, YU is the entire thing now. Oh, well, conveniently, we already had that this was 4.5. So 9 plus 4.5 is simply 13.5. Okay, and again, you can confirm this. If you take 13.5 divided by 3, you do get 4.5, and so on. Everything works out. All right, last one. Again, this is sort of a test for you. See if you can do it. I want to know how long ZJ is. So ZJ is here. All right. You'll notice that's part of the 18 median here. 18 is the whole thing, right? What is ZJ? Is that the 1/3 or the 2/3 part? Hopefully you realize that's the 2/3 part. So I'm going to take 18 divided by 3, which is 6. This is the 1/3 part. So this is actually TJ. If they asked us what TJ was, we would know. And then I double that to get the 2/3 part. So ZJ is actually 12. This guy's actually 12. Or you could take 18 minus 6 and get 12. Your choice. All right. You do have some homework problems to try. Most of them are going to be like this. There are a couple that are algebraic in nature, so see if you guys can figure those out as well, okay? I will be back tomorrow. Obviously, email me if you have questions on Canvas, all right? But please try your best and be good for the sub, all right? Thanks, guys. See you tomorrow.